Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning in to Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. Where only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗿𝗲𝗍 Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. Phil, it's happening.
What's happening? Do I need to sound the alarm?
We're coming to an end.
Whoa, wait a second. Hold on. What?
The 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 series is coming to an end, brother.
Oh man, don't scare me like that.
This is it, man. Ogbe Ofun Lo, man. This is the last one of the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲s. Yep. So we're at a wild juncture here at the channel, man. We're getting closer to 200K. We just finished this what I'm very proud to view as a compendium of information that I think will serve all of those to come after within 𝗃𝗏. So very humbling. To try to do these huge pieces of literature and scripture justice on video has been quite a task.
I think you've accomplished that goal, man. I mean, people in the chat, let us know what you think.
Yeah, and where do we go from here, family? Do you want me to delve into the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲s? Do you want to go Odu by Odu? I really don't know. So I need your help. We, as a team, need your help. And, very bittersweet because, to be able to make it through is very gratifying. But, Ogbe Ofun is quite an Odu. But, sir, how are you?
Man, I am riding a high, man. Not because I am, just I love life right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, everything is so great. I'm feeling good. I still am in search of a living kidney donor. So if you guys are interested in that, just head to 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲.com. And all the information is located there. But happy Sunday, everybody.
Happy Sunday.
I'm glad to be here. And guys, if you want to join our membership program, it's real simple.
Do it.
Just hit that button right under this video. It says join. We have 3 separate tiers. Each tier is offering its own set of perks. If you want to know which perk is what, just go ahead and click on the tier and you will find out. We've got a ton of members there. Nice community. So much extra stuff. So what are we talking about today?
Ogbe Ofun, brothers. So we're gonna delve into all of this, all that this Odu has to offer for sure, and it's a beastly one. It has a lot of patakis in it, and
question real quick before we start. Why is this one the last one?
So when you look at the order of 𝗃𝗏 chronologically, right? When you look at the 𝗃𝗍s, if you notice, there's an order. So the first one is 𝗃𝗶𝗱, right? And then 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, 𝘃𝗶𝗸𝗲, 𝘃𝗏, 𝘃𝗏𝗀𝗻, 𝘃𝗏𝗍𝗏, 𝘃𝗏𝗏, 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 Ofun, right? So it starts with Ogbe and it ends with Ofun. So every, chapter afterwards follows that order as well. So being that Ogbe is the first Odu, once you get through the 16 𝗃𝗍, then the Ogbes begin. And, being that 𝗃𝗏 is part of the 𝗃𝗍s, we begin with 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃, which is a combination of the first and second 𝗃𝗍, and it goes all the way down through all of those 15 Odu, culminating in Ogbe Ofun, right? So Ogbe Ofun is a combination of 𝗃𝗏 and 𝗃𝗏𝗃, which is really wild because they were enemies, so that's why it's seen as the last of the Ogbes, just like 𝗃𝗏𝗃 Ofun is the last of the 𝗃𝗏𝗃s, right? Because it always ends in Ofun until you get to the end of the Ofuns, being that Ofun is the first Ofun, or Ofun 𝗃𝗍𝗲, and it ends in Ofun 𝘄𝗶𝗱, or Ofun 𝘃𝗶𝗱, which is seen as the last Odu altogether. And the ironic thing about that Odu is it says start again. So you made it all the way to 256, and then they send you right back to 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃.
That's got to mean something, though, right?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, man. It's really wild, bro. I gave Hand of 𝗃𝗏 to a woman, right? Really nice lady, older lady, daughter of 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, and we didn't know what her 𝘃𝗏 was going to be, obviously. So, she had a son, or has a son that's 𝗃𝗏𝗃 in the Hand of 𝗃𝗏. So I remember before we were just talking and stuff like that, we're about to give 𝘃𝗏 to mom, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And we start pulling, and she pulls Ofun 𝘄𝗶. And I spit the pataki about where you know, the guy, or 𝗃𝗏𝗯, had studied all of 𝗃𝗏. He had studied all 256 chapters of 𝗃𝗏. So he went in front of Olodumare and said, yo, I finished. Like, yeah, I'm God. He said, you're God, huh? He said, oh, yeah. He's like, what can you tell me about this? And 𝗃𝗏𝗯 had a complete, like, blank. Like, he couldn't respond to the question. He's like, I don't know what Odu that is. And he said, that's 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁. And he said, oh, but that's the first one. I just made it down to 256. And Olodumare said, start again. And that's why in perpetuity, 𝗃𝗏𝗯 has been studying 𝗃𝗏 to perfection since the dawn of time. But what was really wild is that when we pulled, you know, the woman came with 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄. 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗄 led back to 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁, and 𝗃𝗏𝗹 was her son. So, you know, it's things like that where you're like, wow, you know, a whole lifetime having that kind of spiritual background and connection with somebody, and you might not even know until you go through this process. So it was a wild moment for sure. Oh. Yeah. But Ogbe Funfun Lo, as it's known sometimes, speaks heavily of the Orisha Obatala. I mean, even when you look at the name Ogbe Fun, Fun usually makes reference to things that are white, like the Orisha Funfun, or Efun, which is the callous rock, which really personifies Obatala, or the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 as it's known. Obatala is the big guy here. And in this Odu was where Obatala had a son, right? His son was Ogbe Fun. And mind you, didn't know he was Ogbe Fun at this time. He was a real wild guy. He would do a lot of risk taking and a lot of nonsense and whatnot. And he would put himself in near-death situations pretty frequently. This is one of the Odus of Aruye, or of fear or scares, right? And, you know, Obatala would look at his son and be like, bro, I need you to get your life together. You're going to be king one day. Like, please just moderate your character little by little, because, you know, you're not going to be a young man forever. This is going to get old. It's getting old right now, but I'm being patient with you because that's my job. But Ogbe Fun wouldn't listen, right? So he would start doing more and more progressively ridiculous things, and death started really taking notice of this and was like, you know, this guy's annoying me. I'm going to eat him. And, you know, he had a really close call death experience where he went running to his father, and he said, hey, I need help. And Obatala said, death is after you now, son. I can't help you. You have to go see 𝗃𝗏𝗯. And he went to go visit the Babalawo. When they performed 𝗃𝗏 initiation to him, in this case it was the hand of 𝗃𝗏, he came with the Odu Ogbe Fun, where 𝗃𝗏 told him he needed to put on the paraphernalia of 𝗃𝗏 to be able to save himself. Now, in some versions, he was able to fulfill that with the hand of 𝗃𝗏 process through putting on the de, or the necklace, or 𝗃𝗏𝗃 of 𝗃𝗏. But for anybody who has this as an eligible gentleman to become Babalawo, it's referring to this other version where he had to perform Babalawo initiation or 𝗃𝗏 initiation to be able to escape death. And initially he didn't want to do it because he knew all of the requirements that went into becoming Awo and the study and all these different things. And he was like, man, I really don't know if I want to dedicate my life to this. Like, I like to party. I like to act a fool. And, you know, Rula just looked at him. He said, bro, you're going to die. You know, if you don't get with it, death is coming. It might come right after you leave this door. So some versions he didn't, and he did die. And some he did, and he was able to escape death, moderate his character, become an amazing Babalawo, and eventually became king, you know, after his father Obatala transitioned. This is the Odu within the Lukumi 𝗃𝗏 that speaks of the importance of people receiving hand of 𝗃𝗏 to avoid death. Because in this sign, it says that death was after Obatala's children and 𝗃𝗏𝗯's children. Well, technically, we're children of both of them, all of us, because if you're a human being, you're a child of Obatala because, you know, he's seen as the great father of humanity and the constructor of our destinies. And then if you look at the concept of 𝗃𝗏𝗯, we're all children of 𝗃𝗏𝗯 because we all ultimately receive him. So in this Odu, it says Araye, or all of the inhabitants of earth, had to initiate into 𝗃𝗏 to avoid death entirely, or until its predestined moment. So this Odu is the one why people have to receive hand of 𝗃𝗏 to avoid death, sickness, loss, tragedy and calamity. But it happens by going through the hand of Ifa process, right? Because when death saw the ide, or the bracelet, you know, she backed off. She's like, all right, you belong to Orula. I'll go get somebody else at random. So, you know, it was very selective at that point. But this Odu is the Odu upon which 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 substantiates that process, as far as, you know, the confectioning of the ide, the necklace, the process of the hand of Ifa, and why, you know, it benefits people so much. So that's the first thing. Continuing with 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲. This Odu has a pataki where it speaks of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, once again a king, and this might have been before his son 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 Ofun was born. And he wanted to have children. You know, he's king, he's got the palace, he's got the, you know, the big chain. He's like, yo, I got a wife, I want to have a baby. And, you know, he was striking out, you know, month after month. His wife was not able to conceive. He wasn't able to conceive. And this was stressing him out quite a bit because, you know, due to the socio-political climate of, you know, ancient Yoruba land, you know, child rearing and birth was everything. So he went running to Orunmila, and divination was performed for 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, and the Odu of Ogbe Ofun was revealed, to the point where Ogbe Ofun is seen as one of the Odus where 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 initiated into Ifa. And Orunmila told him that the reason he was not able to conceive up until that point was because of all the negativity, envy, and jealousy that people were placing upon him and his woman. It wasn't allowing her to create a fertile ground, a fertile space within her to be able to conceive a child. And, you know, 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, the first response was infuriated. But, you know, he listened to Orunmila, and Orunmila said, if we perform at Bo and we do things the right way and you guys initiate into Ifa and all these different things, everything's going to be fine. And Ifa is going to give you a son. And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 was very pleased at this, so he immediately organized himself. He did all the spiritual work, and just like that, you know, they were able to conceive a child. And when the baby was born, it was a boy. So, you know, 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 praised Orunmila, the Babalawos, and they all praised Olodumare, as the scripture likes to say. This Odu says that the person wants to create a home and a family. It's very, very important in the Odu of Ogbe Ofun. The stability that the partnership and the children provide is very necessary in this Odu, because before the person has a family, they don't have a reason. You know, when we go through those first decades of life, we don't have a reason, or the reasons are very shallow. We're trying to enjoy ourselves, or we're trying to avoid things, or we're trying to feed our ego, or whatever it may be. But when you create a family and you have a partner and you have somebody to be held accountable to, and you have your children, which you put above everything, you know, at that point you begin to think in a much more practical fashion. Because in this Odu, Ogbe Ofun, you know, 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 kind of went through the same process, maybe not as extreme as Ogbe Ofun ultimately did with the story of the ide, where he's like, man, I'm king, I have responsibilities, I have a woman that I love, you know, we want to be able to create something together, all of these different things. And he realized that there's so many other elements to the interaction of human beings. You know, I tell you, it's wild because my profession is a little bit intangible. It's a hard thing to sell. That's why, honestly, the fact that we've been able to swing this for the past 10 years is pretty wild, man. Because you got people out there who perform a lot of tangible things. You might have a guy that's a welder. You might have somebody who's a phlebotomist, you know, and they contribute so much to society. But, you know, I feel like Babalawos and spirit workers, we are the realtors of the spiritual world, you know. People really don't know what we do.
Bro, you gotta look at it like you're a facilitator, man. Yeah,
I'm a mediator of spirituality. But in the Western world, where spirituality is so shunned, it's definitely something that might make somebody question, what am I paying this guy for, right? And I'm going somewhere with this. It's kind of like a real estate agent, you know, very important profession. And you'll know as soon as you try to buy or sell a house on your own, and it's been pending, or it hasn't gone pending in a year, you know, there's so many things that go into that, the interactions, the showings, the logistics of the contract, the closing, the appraisal, all these different things. I know this because my wife's a real estate professional, you know, but some people, even with all that work and toil and sweat that goes into making this process happen, they never really feel you're worth that 2 to 3% commission, depending on the state you're in. So when I look at, you know, Ifa, right? And I feel like we're the realtors of spirituality because, you know, I could kill the chicken, you know, God bless the dead. I could sacrifice it. I could do the ebo. I could direct your Ifa. I could direct your Odua. I could, I don't know, come up with this amazing prophecy. But, you know, there's always going to be that level of human doubt of, if I don't see it, it's not real. So when you look at a Odu and a pataki such as this one in Ogbe Ofun, you know, 𝗵𝗸𝗏 really realized the power and influence of Ifa in his life by way of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, because you look at people, right, that are going through health situations, socially, mentally, all these different things. And mind you, a doctor is there for a reason. The law is there for a reason. We're all coexisting establishments that are just trying to maintain the fabric of society. But when you look at a situation like 𝗵𝗸𝗏's best medical care, every resource, influence, health, all these different things, he wasn't able to accomplish his goal because people hated him, because of the energy that they were dealing with. I would say it's like you said, an intermediary, a facilitary, but I think that the Babalawo is a dealer of energy. You know, we are an energy dealer because, you know, we're trying to redistribute it. We're trying to reallocate it in a way where it benefits you, where we could take all that envy and negativity and all those things that people are putting on you that aren't tangible, but are definitely having a real effect. You know, these things are contagious. If you're around the wrong people, I mean, you're going to pick up everything they have to offer. And for you, it's probably the wrong thing, you know, God forbid, you know, and even things that aren't necessarily physically or biologically contagious, socially and emotionally can be. You know, I had a situation recently where someone was talking to me about a theme where, you know, said person's father was a practitioner of one of these ATRs, and he could have behaved a little better within his spiritual practice. He was somewhat of a sicario. Like, people would come and be like, hey, I want to get rid of this person.
Whoa,
Yeah.
for real?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's guys that make a living off of this, and girls and women. And we don't, but, you know, it was like, hey, that's what his thing. He was a spiritual hitman, right? And they would come to him and they'd be like, hey, I want this person gone. And for a very steep number, he'd make it happen, you know? I never met the gentleman, anything like that, but I'm just listening to the story and I'm like, man, that's intense, you know? But then, you know, he was telling me about a scenario where that person passed away, you know, unexpectedly. And, you know, how he had children, and all of his children were going through phenomenon. Like one I don't know if you contracted, but cancer in the 4th stage, you know, grandkids, like just a lot of phenomenal things that you're like, man, this really is just, this is outrageous, you know, that you see this much pathology or this much casework within one family. And, you know, he was kind of like, man, I wonder if, you know, these were all results of what their father or grandfather had done before them. And, you know, me sitting there, you know, my first thing that's in my mind screaming is yes, you know. But once again, this is intangible. It's based on people's beliefs. But yeah, you do have spiritual inheritance. You do have spiritual ramifications for everything we do and who we're around.
Isn't that the term sins of the father?
Huh?
Isn't that where the term sins of the father come from?
Yeah, absolutely, man. We inherit much more than debt or money. You know, what we leave behind, our legacy, all of these things, and Ogbe Ofun speaks of all of them, you know, is inherited by our children. You know, I have a friend, he practices Judaism and whatnot, and they have a wonderful proverb that I think is great. He said, we don't leave behind debts, we leave behind inheritances. You know, we don't ever put that burden upon our children or those that come after us. We try to lead a sound enough life to where they don't have to carry our weight when we're gone. If anything, you know, we're trying to uplift them and help them accomplish whatever it is that they want based on our sacrifice. And that's what will bring us the gratification and also the spiritual benefit of them remembering, hey, you know, dad left me something that, you was able to help me and my family. And even if it wasn't economic, just a flat balance, everything, leveled out, just the lessons and the morals and the virtues and the ethics and all those things that really matter, because with that kind of knowledge is where you really become prosperous. And 𝗶𝗸𝗏 was realizing that, where he's like, yo, I'm about to break this 𝗶𝗏𝗏 off to do hand of Ifa to my family. He's going to do 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗍, all these different things. He says I'm going to have a baby. And, he was like, dude, what if none of this works? And it's like that with any professional. You go to a doctor. Hey, doctor, I have this situation. Yeah, we're going to charge your insurance a couple $100,000. Everything's going to be fine. And it might not be. You go to the lawyer. Yeah, $50,000 retainer. We'll see what the judge says. Or a politician, forget about it. Oh yeah, if you vote for me, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And for some reason it doesn't happen. We're just professionals. We can't control nature. As tangible as something may seem, we are simply human beings, and most of the things that we interact with are out of our control, other than our own efforts and preparation. So, 𝗵𝗸𝗏 was positively, compensated for his faith. And Ifa provided all that it said it was going to, in conjunction with his good behavior. And, but at that moment, he realized how important spirituality was as far as a component of the human experience, where it was something he completely ignored before. And then when he saw the results of getting certain things done and recommendations done coherently, he was all in. He still recognized as one of the most spiritual kings in the history of Ifa. 𝗵𝗸𝗏 was with 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗍's aid. So 𝗵𝗶𝗏𝗏 speaks of that. 𝗵𝗸𝗏 was able to have a son and spiritualize himself in a way where he was able to protect himself and his family furthermore, as he proceeded with his life and legacy. So all of that is within 𝗵𝗶𝗏. This is known as one of the Odus of Greek mythology. There's a lot of stories in this Odu that can be seen in Greek mythology. Now, mind you, I'm very pro-African mythology as far as, antiquity and whatnot, and recognizing it was probably around before the Greeks. So I got to wonder if, these archetypes and stories made it over there and they just changed the way people looked and, names and things like that. Because if you look at the archetypes of Ifa and the archetypes of Greek mythology, they're Jungian. You have Hermes as Eshu. I would imagine Ogun is like Hephaestion, Ares is like Shango, Olofin is Kronos, Zeus, maybe Zeus was Shango, what have you. But this is known as the Odu of the Apple of Discord. This is also known as the Odu of the Trojan War. And what happened here is it's very similar. There was a guy, Obefun, he had an apple or whatever fruit, maybe, I don't know, maybe an obi, I don't know. And he ran into 3 female orishas, right? And it was Oya, Yemaya, and Oshun, right? So very similar. It was like, hey, who is the most beautiful of us all? Now mind you, the other male orishas, they were like, oh, we're not getting involved in that. But Obefun, he fell for it. And he got involved in a debate with the 𝗹𝗻𝗋 Shoronga, who he didn't realize was the 𝗹𝗻𝗋 at the time, with Oya, Yemaya, and Oshun. So they all offered him something to say they were the most fair. So it's very similar to the story in Greek mythology where I think Oya, who was like Athena, said, I'll make you the most glorious warlord across Earth. You'll be the most powerful man on Earth. And he was like, meh. And then Yemaya, who was kind of like Hera, was like, oh, I'll make you, the king of the world. I'll make you the most wealthy. I'll give you all of the pomp and luxury that comes with regalness and royalty. And he was like, meh. And then Ochun, who was kind of like Aphrodite, was like, I'll give you the love of your life. I'll give you the most beautiful woman on earth, and she'll be your woman. And he was like, you are the fairest of them all. And we know that ultimately led to the Trojan War, when Paris got with Helen and, the war started and the Trojan horse and all these different things. So all of that is in 𝗵𝗶𝗏. That's why 𝗵𝗶 is known as la manzana de la discordia. It says that 𝗵𝗶 has to be very careful because wherever they go, a conflict could ensue or tumultuousness could ensue. This is an Odu where the person has to offer 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗍 pretty frequently, semi-frequently. A couple times a year, they have to get with their 𝗵𝗶𝗏 to be able to offer 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗍 for them because It's just one of those things where the iyami are constantly looking for the person's favor and attention and to see and whatnot. This Odu says, respect marriage, respect the sacrament of it, never be involved in triangles and things like that. But at the same time, you have to be very careful because a weapon or a trap could come in the form of a gift here. 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗀 is an Odu that says we really shouldn't allow people into our homes like that. We shouldn't accept things. They can come spiritually charged in a way that could destroy us. Like someone could put witchcraft on an object and give it to you as a gift and it could destroy you, which is kind of what the Trojan horse was. It allowed them to relax, lower their guard, and because of it, they were able to gain entry into Troy and completely ransack it. So maybe there was a conflict like that, in Africa beforehand. Another thing is, this is the Odu of the apple, right? And, it's one of the fruits here. And when it went for divination, it was told to perform sacrifice with 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗀, and it denied the opportunity or process because it said, look at me, I'm beautiful, I'm healthy, I'm red, I'm shining, I'm all these other things. And Orula was like, you got that. What the apple didn't realize is that 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 was very annoyed with this and said, okay, I'm going to show you how imperfect you are. And 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 actually transformed into a worm and burrowed its way into the apple. Now, the apple, started feeling off immediately and didn't know that the worm was consuming it inside. And when it went running to Orunmila saying, I haven't felt good since the reading, Orula was like, okay, let's read you again. And 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗀𝗀 came out, same ebo, same everything, but now he was under the negative influence of 𝘃𝗶𝗱. So Orula was like, if you don't do the ebo, you're going to die. There's a prophecy of death here. And the apple either did it and, was able to recuperate or did not and was completely rotted out and the worms ate it. But there's a version of the story where they cut the apple open due to its lack of ebo, and when they did, it was all, full of worms and parasites and things like that. And they said, man, what a waste of a knife, So the person in 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀 has to be very careful never to fall into arrogance, overconfidence, or over-ambitiousness because it could cost them their life. 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗀𝗀 𝗃𝗀𝗃, this is one of the Odus why we offer 𝗃𝗀𝗃 apples. Because, 𝗃𝗀𝗃 being the ladies' man that he was, this Odu says he had an apple for every single one of them. It's one of those things where appearances, la apariencia engañan, right? As we say in the Cubaneo. Like the appearances, they deceive. This Odu says the person can seem strong and fortified externally, but internally they have to make sure that there's not situations chronically that are developing that could have very negative effects on their well-being and future and health. So it speaks to all that. There's also a pataki here that's very Greek similarly, which is the Ifa of the sirens, 𝗃𝗲𝗃𝗃 de la sirena. So in this Odu, it speaks of 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀, and 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀 was a fisherman, he was a traveler, he was a boatsman, sailor, all these different things. So before every voyage, he would go to visit Orunmila to ensure a safe passage. Divination was performed not only for him but for his best friend who was who was his co-captain or first mate. 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀 was revealed for both of them. They were both told to perform sacrifice, but the only one that did was 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀. The first mate said, I'm not spending my money and giving it to this guy. We know how to sail. So it's a very simple voyage. And he was like, all right, bro, that's on you. But when they set off, 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀's ebo was with rope. And, Orunmila had told him, hey, when you set sail, leave the boat on autopilot, right? Or however it was where you can make it from one place to the next, but tie yourself to the post of the boat. And 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀 was like, man, you're talking about this is tedious, dog. And the first mate was laughing at him. He's like, bro, I'm not doing that. He's like, man, Orunmila said, and he was like, whatever with Orula. The ebo that 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗀 had performed was with offerings to Olokun. So Olokun was guiding the boat. So they had nothing to worry about there. It was a complete test of faith. But when they got to a certain part in the passage on the water, they saw these beautiful women in the ocean. And, it was a very hypnotizing view. And, the first mate was like, I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to go hang out with them. And Ogbe Ofun was like, I'd like to, but I'm tied up. So, I mean, that's on you, bro. And he was like, I'll be back. So when the first mate jumped in the water and he was listening to the song and they were flirting with him and all these other things, they turned into sea monsters and completely devoured him and the rest of the crew. So when the boat arrived at the other side, they untied Ogbe Ofun, and he was very thankful of 𝗿𝗏𝗍, to be able to save him from the temptation and things like that cost his crew their life. So I think that's like the story from Odysseus or the Odyssey or something like that. But
yeah.
You see those. Armando Sante did amazing in that movie, by the way. Yeah, I watched that in middle school. It was amazing.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies, 1997.
Yeah, he was a beast. And in the movie 𝗀𝗏𝗏, forget about it. Like, that guy's, man, forget about it.
Now, I don't know when we are releasing this episode, but the Christopher Nolan version of the Odyssey starring Matt Damon. July 17th.
I don't know. It's going to be hard to be able to replicate that performance, man.
Yeah, but Christopher Nolan, he's a top tier director. I mean, he did Inception. He did all the Batman trilogies.
And Matt Damon's good. He's good. They in America, what was it? Team America. They did him dirty, dog. But yeah, he's laughing all the way to the bank, I'm sure.
Obscure reference.
Yeah, obscure. But yeah, Armando Sante is a beast, man. He was in Mambo Kings, and they said I think he was a son of Shango in that movie. Yeah, and Antonio Banderas was a son of Yemaya. Celia Cruz pulled the guardian angel, dog.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny.
I know we're getting off topic here, but Armando Sante, he did American Me. And it was
is he in there?
Yeah, that was him.
Oh man.
And he had the gangs that were literally after him.
Yeah.
For his portrayal.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he is in there, dog. Yeah, no, amazing. Yeah, no, but that movie caused a lot of havoc.
Yeah.
I mean, people passed away and stuff like that. Like I watched the interviews. I mean, Danny Trejo, Machete was talking about it and stuff like that. It got hectic, man.
Yeah,
they're not playing,
Props to Armando Sante.
Yeah, no, beast, Hall of Fame for sure. But yeah, that's all in this Odu Ogbe Ofun. This is the Ifa of the Sirens. So Ifa is saying to the person, hey, be very careful, because in this Odu, we have to be focused. If you notice, there's always a thread or a theme in the signs, and Ogbe Ofun biggest con was distractions. Like if you look at 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏's son, he was meant to be king, but he would just like to party. Or if you look at the story about the apple, the guy was supposed to do his own thing with the apple, and he got distracted by the beautiful women. Or you look at this story about the voyage. They should have just focused on the money, but they got distracted and it cost them their lives. This is an Odu where the person has to stay focused and not be capricious. They have to stick to the plan. Even when things seem more attractive doing a shortcut, or if they seem difficult, like we just have to stick to the agenda, So that's the big thing with Ogbe Ofun. This Odu says how you take care of yourself is how you're going to live. Como te cuida, como vivirá. There's a very similar proverb, if not the same one, in the Odu Baba Ifa as well. And this Odu basically says that whatever you put into your body is what you're going to get out. So lead a healthy, active lifestyle. Try to exercise. Try to sleep. Try to have those moments of gratitude. Mentally fortify yourself spiritually as well. And Ogbe Ofun is a very beautiful Odu. There's a pataki here once again with the Orisha 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏. And 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏, here's the big guy. Put it this way: if Ogbe Ofun comes out, it's the first Orisha I'm thinking about asking for. In my opinion, the best Orisha, if there is such a thing, within that combination. But in this sign, 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏, they say he had a garabato, or a crooked staff made of steel or acero. And this is happening cosmically, right? So he's holding this, and this is actually the shape of the earth. He's holding the earth in his hands. Like the earth is this crooked staff, right? So he's doing everything he can to straighten it out, because earth was just a mess, like completely libertinaje, misunderstanding, conflict, calamity. And he's trying the best he can to straighten out this staff made of steel, this cane made of steel, to make it a straight line so that people can begin to live correctly. So he's sweating, he's cursing the staff, like he's going crazy. And Eshu walks by, and he looks at him and he said, "Father, what are you doing?" He said, I'm trying to straighten out this staff, which is the world, so that the world can straighten out and walk a straight line. And he said, Father, but don't you realize if you straighten it, you'll break it? And 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 looked at the staff and he realized, you're right. If I straighten this out, I'm going to break it. You know, so this pataki and this Odu says that the world is imperfect. But to fix it is to break it. So it's one of those things where you kind of look at society like the system's broken, or, you know, we should change this or do this. A lot of the things that are in place are just to be able to facilitate survival and establishment. Anything else has to be on an individual level. So even the religion, you know, like you look at the spirituality of Ifa, you know, I don't criticize nobody. I don't talk about nobody because I'm all about respect, you know. But there are things that, you know, I look at or Erica will bring to my attention and I'll be like, man, what a soup salad, you know, that we're developing into. But it's not my place to raise other people's children, you know. For those that come to our establishment and want to learn and grow, yeah, we're going to get you there. Our formula is perfect. But when you look at the establishment at large, you know, within Ifa Orisha, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired, you know, between all of the social media platforms, the lack of study, the lack of education, the lack of, you know, culture and preparation. It's really scary. But 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 realized I can't fix all these people, because to fix them is to break them. Because if I change their viewpoint, or if I try to show them another way, they're going to break in half. They're going to implode because they can't even handle the authenticity of what is real and what actually works. A lot of people who do the wrong thing, they do it because they don't want to put in the energy and effort to get to doing the right thing the right way. So 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 understood that, and he said, well, there it is. Till this day, we're a crooked cane of existence. And that's in the Odu Ogbe Ofun. You're a movie guy, Phil, so I think you'll appreciate this one to bring it full circle.
Okay.
This is the Odu. Well, first and foremost, this Odu is the Odu of one of the consecrations of 𝗃𝗏𝗏, right? The verse of the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏. So it speaks heavily of 𝗃𝗏𝗏 here in general, right? From a purely 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, forgive me, Ifa standpoint. But the other thing that's born here, which might have had some correlations, being that it is a spiritual document, is the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Okay.
So, you know, the mummy, you know, the gold one and the black one. Yep. All of that was born here. It's interesting because there's a lot of connotations between, or connections between Ifa and Egypt, or Kemet, right? And I was speaking with some new initiates. I just provided them 𝗃𝗏𝗏. And, you know, they were involved or in contact with a lot of really influential people within that faction. And they were educating me and talking to me about it. And, you know, I've always been fascinated by Egypt as well. And I remember talking to them about Ifa and things like that, and how they're initiating into this. And, you know, how in the Odu Ogbe Ofun, it actually speaks of when Orunmila went to Egypt and, you know, educated all of them spiritually, where he's like, hey, this is a mummification process. Hey, these are funeral rites. Hey, this is this. 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 says that information that was ultimately deposited in Egypt came by way of West Africa, right? So, you know, that's just our scripture. Of course, you know, everybody's scripture kind of makes them look good. But when I was speaking to them, you know, their eyes went wide open. And I said, oh, what did I do? And they were like, no, because, you know, some of the leading Kemet professionals and, you know, people possibly even in the Magi as well, like all these guys, they speak about, or there was one particularly who spoke about all the information that Kemet assimilated from West Africa. So obviously if it was assimilated, you have to deduce that it was more antiquitous, right? And apparently the Orishas over there are referred to as the netter or something of that regard. So, you know, I'm just soaking all this in. I'm like, oh my God, that's in the Odu Ogbe. So the Odu Ogbe Ofun also speaks of it as well, because the Book of the Dead speaks of the funeral rites. It's like a eulogy or an homage to the pharaohs and things like that. And once again, Ogbe Ofun says that all of this information was deposited over there from Ifa when Orunmila went through his pilgrimage of Africa and whatnot. So I always found that very, very, very interesting, because anytime I can find a correlation between both of them, it further strengthens us, right? How we've gained from each other. And even there's a lot of Egyptian words that resemble Yoruba words. Like I believe the word ka over there means spirit. And then obviously we have an Odu called 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 or Ika. The word Ika usually means fingers or hands, but it might be referring to the bones and the spiritualities that live within them, what have you. But, there's definitely a lot of cloth to be cut anthropologically from a studious standpoint over there. So, very, very promising. But Ogbe Ofun, really, really great way to bring the Ogbe series full circle. Very enjoyable Odu. I mean, there's so much more information here. This Odu speaks of the strongest plants within the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 corpus, after the ones in 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗃. It speaks of the relationship between 𝗃 and 𝘃𝗶𝗸𝗲, where 𝗃 and the shell went to war, and 𝗃 was able to get the upper hand there. Not going to get into that, but it explains quite a lot, and as to why each oracular system has its own place, why 𝗃 does certain things and why the shell does certain things, and them finding that balance in nature to where neither of them felt inferior. But yeah, Ogbe Ofun, a lot of great babalaos have had this Odu. And yeah, what do you think, Phil?
No, that's a great one.
Yeah, no, Ogbe Ofun it's a great way to bring the Ogbe series to a full circle and close. Before we get into, the members and all these other things, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to provide this. It's been very enjoyable for me because this is kind of what I do every day. So I've never actually prepared per se for the any of the Odu videos that I do, because due to my training, it's so instilled in my RAM that it's basically just a consult. So to be able to put this on wax and have it there for anybody to access has been a humbling privilege, and I hope that it provides a lot of clarity and a lot of confirmation for those that are looking for more information on their signs, and just very, very enjoyable.
Yes, you know what else is enjoyable?
Oh man,
our members. That's right. We're going to show some love to the people who show love to the channel. If you're curious how to do that, click that button right under this video. It says join our membership program. That's right. 3 different tiers, each offering its own different perks.
Get in there.
And everything. So we're going to show love to our supporters. They are our basic tier, but they're anything but.
Oh man, the foundation.
All right, here we go. We got Yoruba Mystic TV.
Thank you, Yoruba.
We got Deshaun.
Thank you.
We got Lou Yank.
Thank you for the support.
We got Swizz Lonnie.
Supporters.
We got Kara Walters.
Okay, Miss Walters, thank you.
We got Paul Allen.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
We got APT The Light.
Okay. See it.
Michael Sasatami.
Thank you.
Tara Meek.
Okay.
Jojo Baby.
Hey, Jojo. Guys, thank you so much for the support. If you know anybody that can benefit from the membership program, please let them know about it. We have new stuff coming out all the time, and benefits and features for you guys, giving you that value. 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗂𝗋candlesandmore.com is up and running for all your spiritual service and product needs. We do ship as long as it doesn't break. If you can't catch us here on YouTube on video, be sure to listen to us on all those major apps and platforms like Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. A big thank you from all of us here at 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗂𝗋candles and more, Our Roots Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and until next time, family, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through